Welcome to The Edge for Tuesday, April 16th, 2024. I'm Devonne Cornelius. A pleasant morning to all of our listeners here on ZIZ Radio, 96.1 FM, St. Kitts and Nevis, the Caribbean, USVI, and the BVI, the USA, UK, Canada, and other parts of the world. Good morning, good evening, good night, wherever you are, and thank you so much for joining me on The Edge for today. In our conversation for today, we will have a look on the committee, or at the committee that is to be established to review building codes. We had a brief chat about this yesterday, where it tied into water and storage facilities. And this is a conversation that has been ongoing for quite some time in terms of reviewing building codes and ensuring that they are proper building codes. As we know, St. Kitts and Nevis is prone to natural disasters such as storms and hurricanes, and ensuring that we have proper building codes is definitely of utmost importance. That committee will be set up by the Ministry of Sustainable Development, and yesterday they sent out a press statement to speak on the establishment of the committee, the composition of the committee, and the various organizations and bodies that would be represented on this committee. And so I'll share with you some highlights of this. So building codes will now be reviewed more regularly as a new committee under the guidance of the Ministry of Sustainable Development has been established. And building codes are categorized as the minimum standards required for the construction of buildings that include structural design, fire safety, electrical systems, plumbing, and ventilation. In a sense, they are regulations that safeguard public health, safety, and well-being. The newly installed committee will ensure that the provisions of the building code are revised regularly, at least 3 to 5 years. The principal functions of the committee include receiving, discussing, and reviewing comments, submissions, and recommendations on the provisions, enforcement, and application of the building code from concerned groups and individuals, and making recommendations to the minister responsible for development regarding the application and updating of the building code. This was underscored by the Minister, Dr. Joel Clark, when she was here on The Edge on the 9th of April, where she said the Development Control and Planning Board is planning on reviewing its own legislation and ensuring that the building codes are in line with the critical factors like climate resilient building codes and engineering. Key institutions involved in the development process include the Development Control and Planning Board, Department of Physical Planning, Environmental Health, Water and Fire Services Departments, St. Kitts and Nevis Bureau of Standards, Engineers Association of St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Kitts and Nevis Institute of Architects, Building Contractors Association, and the Association of Persons with Disabilities. The reviewing of the building codes is being supported by the Global Environment Facility, GEF project, dubbed Improving Environmental Management through Sustainable Land Management in St. Kitts and Nevis, which is implemented by the UN Environment Program, that's UNEP, and executed nationally by the International Union for the Conservation of Nature in coordination with the government of St. Kitts and Nevis. And so that is regarding the building code, and a committee has been set up to review building codes. This is very important. As I mentioned earlier, St. Kitts and Nevis, like other countries in the Caribbean and other parts of the world, are prone to natural disasters such as storms and hurricanes. And we know that these hurricanes are getting stronger and stronger and stronger. They are intensifying, and we need to do what is necessary to prepare ourselves for these storms. This is us adapting to the changing climate and the changing environment. And so instead of us just talking about these things, there needs to be real action. And the Sustainable Development Ministry has gone ahead to establish a committee. And as I mentioned, their task primarily is to review building codes and ensure that they meet international standards in terms of climate resilience and proper engineering. Now, I took some time to go through the legislation that speaks to development and the control board, and it speaks to the objects and purposes of the legislation. It speaks to the development and planning board. It also speaks to environmental impact assessment. We know that the EIAs are very important when we are constructing buildings, especially on the coastal area. So EIAs, they serve a very critical role whenever we are building. I recall the minister when she was here, she spoke to, I posed a question about Bastia and Charlestown, but in this case Bastia, and making our cities sustainable, sustainable to deal with natural disasters. We've been hearing for quite some time that Bastia is below sea level, but what do we do? I, for one, I'm of the view that we can't continue to have these conversations, because the minister noted that for quite some time they have been talking about what are they going to do in response to the changing environment. But these things can't just be conversations. There must be real action. There must be, you must see something happening, or else we're going to be left behind, and that is not the way. If you're talking about a sustainable island state and doing things sustainable in a sustainable way, these are the conversations that must be had first, and there must be action after. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to The Edge here on ZIZ Radio, 96.1 FM here in Bastia, St. Kitts. I'm your host, Devonne, Cornelius, and thank you so much for joining me in the conversation for today. We are looking at the establishment, or the committee that has been established to review building codes, and that committee was established by the Ministry of Sustainable Development. So I will share with you a few highlights from the legislation that supports this. Now, the purpose of the Act is to foster the awareness. It reads, to foster the awareness that all persons and organizations owning, occupying, and developing land have a duty to use that land with due regard for the wider interest of both present and future society as a whole, to maintain and improve the quality of the physical environment within which patterns of human settlement are situated in St. Christopher, to achieve orderly, economical, and beneficial development and planning, allocation, and development of the resources of St. Christopher, taking account of all relevant social, economic, and environmental factors, so as to ensure that the most efficient, equitable, and environmentally sustainable use is made of land in the interests of all the people of St. Christopher. It continues by saying to provide for the orderly subdivision of the land and the provision of services in relation to protect and conserve the cultural heritage of St. Christopher as it finds expression in the natural and the built environment, to facilitate a process whereby people participate in the development and planning of their communities so as far as it is compatible with the public interest, to facilitate a continuous improvement in the quality of life of all the people of St. Christopher. In implementing, applying, and interpreting this act, all persons shall have regard to use their best effort to further and give a broad and purposive, I think that's the word, interpretation to the matters set out in this act. With regards to the EIA, unless the board otherwise determines, environmental impact assessment shall be required in respect of any application for development permission to which this act speaks to. The board may require environmental impact assessment of any development other than the development set out in the act where it is of the opinion that significant adverse environmental impact could result. On receipt of an application for development permission, the board shall determine whether environmental impact assessment of the proposal is required, having regard to the nature of the development activity proposed, the geographical extent, scale, and location of the proposed development. It's 11 minutes past, and you're listening to The Edge for Tuesday, April 16th, 2024. We'll take a short break, and when we come back, I'll share some more information on the establishment of this committee. Stay tuned.
This is my land, my island, our home. The climate has changed, it's becoming strange. We have to come together to keep her forever resilient and strong. We need slope stabilization, forest rehabilitation. Come together as a nation for drought and flood mitigation. Development with policies and plans. Let's change our ways, protect our lands. Get involved, every child, woman and man. Island resilience has got the plan. This is my land, my island, our home. It's time to come together to keep her forever resilient and strong.
Island Resilience, promoting a climate of change. The Climate Change Adaptation and Sustainable Land Management Initiative of the OECS Commission, funded by the European Union.
Hello and welcome back to The Edge in ZIZ Radio, 96.1 FM. I'm your host, Devonne Cornelius. We are also live on ZIZ TV and social media platforms. Check us out on our YouTube channel and Facebook page. Again, thank you so much for joining, and I look forward to the calls when we open the phone lines later. You can call us at 465-2555 or 718-577-2916. Again, the numbers are 465-2555 or 718-577-2916. And let me continue where I left off from, and this speaks to the environmental impact assessment. And basically this is environmentalists doing an assessment to determine how would the development or the building or whatever they are developing in that specific area, how would it impact the environment? That is simply what an environmental impact assessment is, and this is to be presented to the board for them to study. And so it's not a free-for-all. Environmental impact assessments have been, I think, going on for a very long time. I can't even tell you when, but these things are very important, because whenever we are developing land and doing these things, this must also be a part of the planning, and these things should not be taken lightly. Now, in this act, it also went on to say, in terms of the environmental impact assessment, he says the extent and significance of the extent of general knowledge about the nature of the proposed development and its likely impact on the environment. Any development plan for the area, any other matter as may be prescribed. Where it determines that environmental impact assessment is required, the board shall, within 30 days of the receipt of an application for development permission, issue a written notice notifying the applicant or the person responsible of the determination that environmental impact assessment is required for the development proposal and setting out the terms of reference for the preparation of an environmental impact statement on the development proposal and the board within which the environment impact statement shall be submitted to the board. And this speaks to the development and planning board, which is responsible for, as the name suggests, the development and planning as it relates to land and buildings and all of these things. And they will be a part of the committee that will be reviewing building codes in the country. It is 11:16 and we'll open the phone lines and take your calls at 465-2555 or 718-577-2916. Let's take our first call for this morning. Hello, caller. Good morning. You are on the air.
Good morning, Devonne.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. You?
Not bad at all. Giving thanks for life.
Okay, I'm glad for the topic you bring up because I got a problem with the part of the environment of St. Kitts for many years. Now, I like the name of it, you know. But it is EIA.
Mm-hmm.
Right, I like that. How long have we have any, what you call it, the board, the development control board or whatever it is?
How long has it been in place?
Yeah.
I don't know, but I was going through the legislation and I see legislation as far as back the early 90s or like around the early 2000s thereabout.
Yeah.
But I'll have to verify that for you.
Okay. But okay, now there is a place in the east called Frigate Bay. And I know for sure there is an office over there called Frigate Bay Development Corporation. And they have a board. I don't know if the board is dissolved or what. Well, they're supposed to control development over Frigate Bay. But I want to know if the owner of a wall house which is constructed and the beach itself, and it is into part of it is in the watermark. I want to know if they give the owner control, permission to build that, someone else break the decision of the board, the corporation board, and give the owner to build that house here. And also, what the owner for that house did, just to block off the passageway from people to use the beach from the one end to the other, they throw down a load of big boulders in the water, so you got to either swim, go out there to go around, or climb over them. No. The impact and the environment from that building there, it would not be friendly with our marine life. Because nobody in these days here building borehole pit in the yard. Everybody shutting them up and trying to get a little flush toilet. And that property there, I want to know if it has just what do you call it there, not the soak away, the septic.
You want to know if the property has a septic?
Just the septic alone, so that when you fold the truck, come and pull it out and take it somewhere else. It has also a soak away. Because what goes in the septic, the water runs out and goes down in the soak away. So I want to know what is the condition of that. I'll listen out there for your response or anything else.
Well, All right, Carla, thank you for your contribution. Well, I don't know if that building is a government-owned building or if it's a private building, but I don't know. I would assume that it has a septic and a soakaway and all these things, right? We have a call on the line. Let's take this call. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning. While listening to your introduction this morning, I heard you say something that I've heard others say, and I know it to be incorrect. You mentioned that Basti is below sea level. That I know cannot be true, because all of our gutters run downhill and they run into the sea. And if you step off the bayfront, you have to step down a few feet to reach the sea level. So Bastille itself cannot be below sea level. So it would be not advisable for you to continue saying that, because it would obviously mislead persons who are not aware that literally it is probably 6 or more feet above sea level. Along with that, if you look at the old Treasury building, I don't know if there used to be a marker there, I think on the eastern corner of the old Treasury building, which is about 1.5 feet above the road level, which was the official zero level for topographical purposes. There was marked as the level of seawater. So when you start to count your altitude of any part of St. Kitts from above sea level, you counted it above there from that point out. That was 0. But that 0 point is actually about 6 or more feet above sea level. So literally,
where you said the marker is?
I think it's to the eastern corner, northeastern corner of the old Treasury building.
Okay.
But that is the actual official sea level for topographical map purposes. But Bastia is way above water level, because if it was underneath water level, gutters and so don't run uphill, they could not run into the sea if they were below sea level.
So you're saying there are gutters in Bastia that run, for lack of a better word, seamlessly or fluently into the sea?
Yes, don't you know that? Holly's got, Westbourne got, all kind of things like that. Is Charlestown below sea level? Charlestown is about this, the shoreline of along the driveway along Charlestown is about the same height above sea level as Bastia is above sea level. So basically the old Treasury building in Charlestown would probably be below sea level too, if you want to say Bastia is below sea level. But think seriously about it, because water does not flow uphill, and all the gutters in St. Kitts run downhill. All those gutters coming down from West Square Street, they go underground and go under Port Zante and flow out into the sea, downhill all the way. Thank you.
All right, Connor. Thank you so much for your contribution to the program. It is 11:23 and we're taking your calls. Let's start with the phone lines. We'll take this call. Hello, caller. Good morning.
Yes, good day. I want to emphasize that Bastia is definitely below sea level. You'll find that all the guts and rivers come from up Monkey Hill area and, flow down towards Bastia. Now, sea level, somebody who's more expert can check it, but sea level doesn't mean the shoreline. The sea level is measured. Sea level is somewhere out, right? That's the height. That's what they regard as sea level, right? That's why the seawater flows towards the shoreline, because out there, which is sea level, is higher than Bastia itself. Bastia is definitely below sea level, and that's the Bastia is a French name. It means low ground, right? And if you go east, you see that they built a retaining wall when the water to build the road go to Newtown and higher up towards Palms Pasture. If you check up there, you'll see that there's a retaining wall. Okay? And down in Irish Town, to I understand. Well, I don't know if they had regarded it as a retaining wall, but my understanding from the older people is that they used to have a wall and a sidewalk down in Irish Town level too. But one administrator said that the walkers used to go there and lime. So they said he broke down the wall. That is what I understand. You could ask the older people. They'll probably have to be in the high 70s or in the 80s because I'm going for my 80s. And I heard it from people older than me. I think they said the administrator's name was Boone, right? But there was a seawall down in the Irish Town. Well, down there by below the Treasury going west. But the walkers used to lime there, cool out there. And they decided they're going to break it down. That's my understanding.
All right. All right, caller. Thank you so much for your contribution to the program. Do we have any more callers on the line? Any more callers on the line? No? Okay, we'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll continue the conversation for today.
Get ready, St. Kitts and Nevis, for the first annual Jesus in the City Parade and Festival on Saturday, May 18th, 2024 at the Warner Park Stadium. Celebrate love for God and love for people throughout the city with festive floats, live gospel bands, choirs, costumes, banners, and paraders filling the streets of downtown Bastille with praise and worship. The opening festivities kick off at 11 a.m. with the parade leaving Warner Park Stadium at 12 noon, moving along city streets and returning to the stadium for a grand gospel concert celebration. Enjoy music featuring special international guest artists, local bands, food and festivities for the whole family. Come lift up the name of Jesus in the city on Saturday, May 18th, 2024. To register your church, enter a float, secure a vendor booth, or to become a sponsor, visit jesusinthecity.com or call 662-8911.
Jesus in the city, hands in the air.
Hello and welcome back to The Edge on ZIZ Radio 96.1 FM. I'm your host, Devonne Cornelius. We have some callers coming in, so we'll continue to take your calls at 465-2555 or 718-577-2916. Let's take this call.
Hello.
Hi, caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yeah, Devonne, me again. Okay, about the house over Frigate Bay. It is not the government house. It's a private house.
Okay.
And now, if you have east to west, let's say you pave a piece of concrete on the ground, and then you're going to measure from east to west, and you get 180 degrees flat, and north to south, the same 180 degrees flat, and you throw some water on that. You know the water would not run off by gravity. It takes the wind to push the water off of that. But if you have east to west, 180 degrees, and north to south is less than 180 degrees, then the water will come from north, you're going to run off in the sea. That's why St. Kitts do not flood from the sea. When we have rough sea, the water come up and it bash on the sand and it bounce over on the street and it go back down. Bangladesh and them places up here which are so flat, a lot of them right by the ocean or whatever, they below sea level. That's why you see when rain fall, the water spread out, and a lot of them people got to go up on the houses because of the grade of the land. Okay, Devon, thank you very much.
I have some information here in front of me. I took the time to do some quick research, which is a CARVI risk assessment, and it is a holistic city-based assessment of the climate risks facing Bastia. And it says that Bastia faces significant vulnerabilities from extreme weather events, vulnerable coastal ecosystems, unreported fishing, and a reliance on imported fossil fuels. And so I'll share some brief highlights of the report. And it speaks to the projected sea level rise, which is 5.24, is also a concern for Bastia. The report says, and I quote, by 2018, sea levels had already risen by around 0.08 meters, and the country has lost more than 25% of its land area since 1961. According to the report, by 2032, and I'm going to share this site where you can go and get the information. By 2032, the World Bank projects that St. Kitts and Nevis will experience sea level rise between 0.12 and 0.19 meters. By 2050, the rise is projected to increase to 0.20 to 0.31 meters. By the end of the century, projections diverge substantially based on expected greenhouse gas emissions, with the greenhouse gas emissions. This sea level rise is likely to increase the risk of coastal flooding, especially for areas that are already at higher risk, and may increase coastal erosion, already scored a medium high risk, and saltwater intrusion in coastal aquifers, also already a medium high risk. Interviews noted that coastal erosion and sea level rise also threatens sea turtle nesting sites. Civil society organizations such as the St. Kitts Sea Turtle Monitoring Network have relocated nests for safety areas with support from the government. It went on to say that freshwater availability for St. Kitts and Nevis is already limited. The island has the highest level of water stress among OECS member states, with 51% of available renewable freshwater resources being withdrawn, more than 3.5 times higher than the next most stressed island state, which is St. Lucia. This is a very long report, but I'm happy that I found it, and I'll share with you. You can search stimson.org 2022 CARVI Risk Profile Bastia St. Kitts and Nevis. That is stimson.org 2022 CARVI, that's CORVI Risk Profile Bastia. And it gives a very comprehensive breakdown in terms of ecological risk, financial risk, the status of resilience planning in Bastia, and all of these things. It's 11:34. Let's head back to the phone lines, and we will take some more calls. Hello, caller. Good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Devonne.
Good morning. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. It's good that the building codes are being reviewed. It should, in fact, be a continuous process. But in the past, as we know, as an earlier caller identified, the regulations are subject to the whims and fancies of people in authority, mostly politicians, who very often make decisions based on political convenience rather than the best practices in planning and development. Sometimes I wonder why we do things the way we do it. How we build our roads and roundabouts, how we plan our new developments and implement them, these plans, without taking account of things like drainage and so on. And often we tend to solve one problem, be it, let's say, housing. We solve that problem by building, and we create 10 in the process. I know we have trained people in design and planning, so I can only conclude that their ideas, their recommendations have been overridden by higher powers. And there are a number of projects and so on that we can point to that show that this is in fact the case. Mm-hmm. I know, for instance, the area where I live, there was an overall plan for the area, and I've had occasion to speak to several persons who were in charge of that development, who basically ignored essential elements in the original plan and essentially inserted their own. Okay? We can't continue to have these ad hoc changes for convenience and expect that we're going to end up with good results. So I hope there is an overall plan that looks long-term, not just short-term, because that tends to be the case. You just look at short-term things. Okay, and that such a plan would involve, and this is important, I think, input from the public, because very often you hear of a new development, and unlike metropolitan countries or more progressive countries, they are just implemented by the powers that be without adequate consultation with the public or the neighboring communities that would be affected by such development, mm-hmm. right? So I hope that any major new project, regardless to what it is,
right,
it is brought before the public for their consideration and input, and lastly, that there is enforcement, because that, I think, bedevils us. We put things in place. There are actual rules and regulations governing them, but there seems to be a lack of enforcement when it comes to when it comes down to it, and so it's almost a free for all. And really and truly, we can't just keep on doing that. We're going to end up in trouble. Okay then.
All right, caller. Thank you so much for your contribution to the program. Let's take this other call. Hello, caller. You're on the air. Good morning.
Hello?
Hi, caller. Good morning. You're on the air.
Hello?
Yes, caller. You're on the air.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to make sure that it's my turn.
Yes.
Listen, I'm an old educator, right? And when I don't normally call into these programs, but when I hear things being disseminated that are incorrect and can cause danger to the populace, I think as an educator, I must try to educate. Now, let me say, this sea-level business that they're talking about, my brother, has nothing to do with the shoreline, And it has nothing to do exactly with the climatic impact on the sea. They're talking about a mean sea level established by surveyors. The surveyors establish a mean sea level. So what you see down by the Treasury is what we call a datum. And that datum will tell you the height there below sea level. doesn't mean that because there's a datum, the datum is above sea level. No, the datum is a reference to sea level. You see? So when surveyors are doing levels, you know, what you call topography and spot levels and so on that the surveyors do.
Okay.
They use these datum to get benchmark. And from the benchmark is from where levels are derived. So don't say vast here is not below sea level, because when you see those evacuation signs, people might think that they don't have to move because it's not below sea level. When somewhere is not below sea level, then you can be easily affected by a tsunami.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, I'm following you.
So we have to educate the people right on that. So it's not where the shoreline ends, it's the sea level.
Mm-hmm.
So that needs to be clear. And when you talk about the climatic change, about the rise of sea level, there are other factors, you know, like the moon. You have high tide, low tide,
yes,
and so on. No, this is according to the solar attraction. So when we speak of sea level, we're talking about a mean sea level, an average mean sea level. So one time it might be here, and then you go down and come back up, and go down and come back up. But these experts use whatever they use to calculate it to determine what is a safe sea level.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Is that clear?
Yes, thank you so much for that, caller.
Okay, good.
Thank you so much for your contribution. Let's take some more calls. Hello, caller. Good morning. You're on the air.
Yes, I called already, but I was concentrating so much about vast here and the sea level that I forgot about the situation at Frigate Bay that somebody called about later on. I mean, that was atrocious. It's a monstrosity out there. But that is one of the situations where the politicians did determine what would happen. You know, there are times when the civil servants and other advisors give proper advice, but the politicians overrule them. But it's not so all the time. You do have a lot of lazy advisors and civil servants who sit back and just collect their pay. They don't advise the politicians and those people, you know, because they themselves a little more said at time. These people don't read, you know, they don't read sufficiently, so they would not know how to advise. To tell you the truth, both myself and Dr. Devonne Somersu were against the government totally removing income tax. But then the government did get advice from a senior civil servant. And he advised them that if you don't collect a lot of money from income tax, you know, because most persons, doctors, lawyers, those kind of independent people, they don't used to pay income tax, you know.
All right, caller. All right, we don't want to take some more calls, so quickly make your point. Go ahead.
That is why when the tax was removed, so much money flew into government coffers, because it's not easy to evade the custom duty. Okay?
All right, thank
now,
you.
Now, somebody made a point, which I made earlier. The sea level is not the shoreline. It's higher out where you have, I don't know the technical term for it, but the sea level is a distance outside the shoreline. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for your contribution. I want to share some information with you. This is very old information, and I promised to update it, but I thought it worth sharing. And this gives like a summary and a history of building codes in the Caribbean over the years. This is as old as about 23 years old. It was prepared in March 1999 and updated in August 2001. And it has a list of the countries from Anguilla to Turks and Caicos. So Anguilla Antigua and Barbuda, Bahamas, Barbados, Belize, Dominica, Grenada, Jamaica, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, Trinidad and Tobago, and Turks and Caicos Islands. So for St. Kitts and Nevis, the building code was approved by Parliament and mandated for use by the Development Board and by the Development Control and Planning Bill, which was gazetted in 2000. The building regulations include the building code and building guidelines and the second and third schedules. For our neighbors, Antigua and Barbuda, it was completed based on OECS Model Building Code and legislated in 1996 as regulators under the Development Control Ordinance. In Anguilla Building Code completed. Anguilla Building Ordinance mandates the use of Anguilla Building Code, and building regulations mandating the use of the code will be incorporated into the new Physical Planning Ordinance, which is administered by the Department of Physical Planning. The Attorney General's office is now discussing, and that was in 2000, they discussed the draft legislation with the Public Works and Physical Planning departments. And this is just a brief, I can't go through everything right now, but just a brief overview of the building codes. But for us here in St. Kitts and Nevis, building code was approved by Parliament and mandated for use by the Development Control and Planning Bill, which was gazetted in 2000. And I promise to bring back more updated information, of course, but I thought it necessary to get information as far as back as 2000 or the late 90s rather, as it relates to building code. If you're just tuning in, the conversation has been centered around building codes in St. Kitts and Nevis and things related to the environment. The Ministry of Sustainable Development has established a committee to review building codes, and this will be done at least 3 to 5 years. And the review of the building codes is being supported by the Global Environment Facility Project, dubbed Improving Environmental Management through Sustainable Land Management in St. Kitts and Nevis, which is implemented by the UN Environment Programme and executed nationally by the International Union for the Conservation of Nature in coordination with the government of St. Kitts and Nevis. It's 11:47, and we will take some more calls at 465-2555 or 718-577-2916. Any callers? All right. Let me say thank you so much for your contribution. We can take some more calls and we'll await those callers to come in. Again, the numbers are 465-2555 or 718-577-2916 as we begin to wind down and wrap up the program in time for our midday newscast. But we were just having an on the surface conversation. A caller made the point earlier about, having these legislations in place, and you have people in St. Kitts and Nevis who are trained, they are certified, they are very knowledgeable in terms of building codes, sustainable development, the environment, climate change, and all of these things. They're here, they're educated, and they're experienced. But in terms of being given the platform or the support to carry out their duties and responsibilities, I think that is where the problem lies. Because let us not shy away from the fact that whenever these conversations come up, the conversation or the topic of financing also ties into it. It doesn't make any sense that we've been talking for years about proper development of our land and building codes and all of these things, and we're not there yet. We have a caller on the line? All right. So, hello, caller?
Yes, yes.
Hello, caller. Are you hearing me?
Yeah, I would just like to say that as you mentioned just now, we have trained people here, and trained persons who don't know just about book work, but not about practical things. For instance, anybody familiar with the situation would tell you that the frigate bed development guidelines were more advanced, or the frigate bed building code was more advanced than the National Building Code, you know, because we had serious persons on the Frigate Bed Development Corporation board. So the building code for over there was very advanced of the National Building Code, some of which were later adopted by the National Authority. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, Claudia. Thank you so much for your contribution to the program. We begin to wrap up our conversation for today in preparation for the midday newscast. Let me use this opportunity to say thank you for your contribution to the conversation at hand. And we will be back. I will be back this week with some very special guests to discuss a number of topics in St. Kitts and Nevis as it relates to our economic and social and community development. Until next time, you guys, stay safe and continue to enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Don't drink and drive. Don't text and drive. It's been a good one. See you guys tomorrow. Same time, same station. Stay tuned.